Ready? So in the comments, you can ask for stuff, and somebody asked for Bell's palsy, which is an idiopathic cranial nerve 7 palsy. I don't like this word idiopathic because it means you've made sure it's not something else, but this does exist. It's dangerous because when you have an eponym, it makes it seem like you're saying something other than idiopathic, but it's idiopathic. And in fact, some people believe that Bell's palsy is not idiopathic, that it's post-viral from herpes. And so antivirals and steroids have been given to patients with Bell's palsy. And you should know the features of the 7th nerve. And this nerve does a lot of things. And so it is a nucleus, and that nucleus is in the pons. And so we'll do the easy ones first, and then we'll gradually make our way to the harder ones. So in the nucleus, in the pons, you have a fascicle. The fascicle of the motor nerve wraps around the 6th nerve nucleus. And so this genu goes dorsally before going ventrally. Then the root exit zone from the pons, after it leaves the pons, is the peripheral nerve. The nerve travels to the internal auditory canal and then makes its way around the geniculate ganglion. And for the motor one, which is the one we're going to start with, this is the motor nerve, and it's special because it's derived from branchial arches, and those are special efferents. So these special efferents are going to innervate the muscles of your face. And so after it passes around the bend, it's got to exit the foramen, in this case the stylomastoid foramen. And then it's going to branch to its branches to Zanzibar by motor car, temporal zygomatic buccal mandibular, and the cervical branches. And then there's little branches down to the strap muscles in your neck, digastric and hyaloid, things that have nothing to do with eye. It's ENT. You should also know that in the internal auditory canal, there's like a little branch to this stapedius, and that stapedius goes to the stapes to hold the tympanic membrane, and so that prevents hyperacusis. The sound isn't too loud. So this is the motor of 7, the one that you're probably most familiar with. However, this nerve also does other things, and one of the other things it does is it supplies the innervation right behind your ear. That is a general somatic afferent, which is a sensory nerve. This part of your ear is called the posterior auricular nerve, and there you should look in the inner ear for vesicles in herpes. That's the Ramsay-Hunt syndrome, because the 7th nerve sensory branch, the general somatic afferent, could be involved, and it goes all the way backwards, but this time we're going to the brainstem, through the stylomastoid foramen, back around the geniculate ganglion, through the internal auditory canal, back to the fascicle, but instead of looping around, it just goes straight to the nucleus, and that is the spinal nucleus for sensation. So this is the 7th nerve and the spinal nucleus of 5 in the brainstem. So that is a general somatic afferent, just a regular sensory nerve behind your ear right here. And the reason it's important is you want to look for Ramsay-Hunt vesicles in that location. Now you've got other nerves that control other things that are special. And one of the special things that you need to know about is the anterior taste of the tongue, the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. And that nerve is a afferent because it's sensory, and it's visceral, and it's special because it's taste. And that nerve is going to travel back on the lingual nerve, and that nerve, lingual, becomes chorda tympani, and that chorda tympani has to go back around the geniculate ganglion, internal auditory canal, back to the fascicle, back to its nucleus in the brainstem. So that is the special visceral afferent. And we've got glands that we have to innervate both in your eye for tearing, that's the lacrimal gland, and down here in the submandibular glands, that's for salivary. And those nerves have a nucleus, the salivatory nucleus and the lacrimal nucleus. They have a fascicle, travel around into the internal auditory canal, the geniculate ganglion, but then it divides into a top half and a bottom half. The top half is headed to the lacrimal gland, and that is the lacrimal nerve. And the branch beforehand is the Vidian nerve, and it's traveling on the greater superficial petrosal nerve. So that Vidian nerve is in the pterygopalatine fossa next to the sphenopalatine ganglion, supplying the visceral efferent to the lacrimal gland to make tears. The same thing is happening on the lower branch, the chorda tympani, to the submandibular glands, and that is also secretory general visceral efferent supplying the glands in your mouth. And the reason that's important is sometimes these wires get crossed. And so if you get a Bell's palsy, you might get crocodile tears. Tears might come out of here when you're trying to make salivation. So the crocodile, before he eats you, he cries, but they're fake tears. This is from aberrant regeneration between the two general visceral efferents. And so you should now know the different branches of the seventh nerve: the regular motor, the special motor, the regular sensory, the special sensory, and the visceral autonomic function efferents to the lacrimal gland and to the submandibular gland. And if you have a lesion in the proximal seventh and it's idiopathic, we call that Bell's palsy.